Welcome back to DIY with Dave. In this video, I'm going to be building this awesome pergola where I'm going to hang some hammocks. Now with COVID-19, coronavirus going out in the world and making, ruining everyone's summers, we decided that one of the things that we want to do is make our backyard as fun and enjoyable as possible. And so I've got a lot of backyard projects going, and I'll be showing those all in videos here in the coming weeks. This project though, I think is one of my favorites. Now I can't take full credit for this project. I got the idea from my wife's sister, who runs an Instagram account along with her sister-in-law called Fox and Timber. You should check them out. And they posted this project and my wife saw it and wanted to do it at our house. And so that's what we did. The project itself is simple, not terribly complex, and something that basically anyone can do, but it does take a bit of work. So let's get into it and I'll show you how I did it. The first step of the project is planning it out and figuring out exactly, how wide you want to make your spaces for your hammocks, how tall it needs to be, and all that. Now the hammocks themselves are about 4 feet wide, and so the space needs to be at least 4.5 feet to give it room to kind of move side to side. We ended up doing ours 5 feet apart, so the spaces each are 5 feet, and that seemed to work pretty well. In terms of height, you wanted at least 7.5 feet tall. We did ours 8 feet tall. So again, that is 5 feet in width for each box and 8 feet in height. So after planning it out and deciding how tall I want everything to be, how wide I want the spaces to be for the hammocks, I get to digging. Yeah. Digging is always the most labor-intensive part. I started out by starting my holes with a flat shovel and just digging out the shape. When you dig the hole needs to be 3 times the diameter of your post. You could use 4x4 posts. My sister-in-law used 6x6 posts. I used 4x6 posts. I like the thickness of the 4x6 posts, but it's also much cheaper than using 6x6 posts. 4x4, you could, again, definitely use it, but it wouldn't be quite as sturdy. In digging this hole, I needed to get the hole down at least 3.5 feet, which is pretty deep, and all I was using was a post hole digger by hand. You could definitely use an auger if you have that. But as I started doing it, I was using the shovel and the post hole digger. I soon realized that wasn't enough. I needed some extra help to get some of those rocks out that I couldn't get. So I went to the store and I bought what's called a St. Angelo bar. And the St. Angelo bar is essentially a pry bar. It has one end with a flat spade and the other end with a sharp point, and it's perfect for stabbing into the hole and prying out some of those rocks. Once I get those rocks down, I get that hole dug to where it needs to be, I'm able to move on to the next step. Success. Okay, are you a zombie? Are you a zombie with a bike helmet?
Yeah, some zombies die.
Because they rode their bike in the street, huh?
Yeah.
Next is the cement. I'm using a Quikrete fast drying cement. It's a cement that you can actually just pour into the hole and then pour water into it. So you don't need to worry about mixing ahead of time, and that worked really, really well for this application. So I really suggest that you use that. They didn't sell it at Lowe's. I did buy it at Home Depot. So you'd have to check around to see if they have it in stock where you are. But again, it's Quikrete fast setting concrete. I'll post a link in the description to a video that shows you how to do it, but it's really simple. I poured about 6 inches of gravel in the bottom first as a base, level that out with the post itself, and then set the post in, pour all of the concrete mix in there, and then fill the hole with water. Make sure you're following the instructions on the back of the package to make sure you're doing it the right way. The water didn't seem to penetrate all that well at first, so I kind of stabbed it a bit to let some of the water down into the bottom, and that seemed to work well. With the second and third posts, I actually added about half the concrete and then some water, and then the other half concrete and then some water, and that seemed to work much better. But with 6 inches of gravel in the bottom, 3 feet of concrete, that actually makes these posts very sturdy. As you're doing it though, you want to make sure that you level the posts. You also want to make sure that those posts are in line with each other. And so, you know, however you do that, whether you pull string or measure or whatever, make sure that those posts are in line and make sure that they're level. Once the posts are in, we can get to work on the rest. Now, one of the things that I have is that my ground in this spot is actually not quite level. I have a bit of a dip down, a bit of a hill, and so my posts need to be level with each other, but that doesn't mean that they're all going to be the same height. So what I did is I pulled a string across the top and used some of these string levels to make sure that I could cut the tops of the posts all to the right size and the right height so that they were level with each other. Now, when I eventually cut the tops, I used a saw. I put up kind of a ledger board. Here's a picture of what that looks like, and then just used a hand circular saw to make those cuts. You could definitely use just a regular hand saw. It'd take a lot longer, but it'd definitely be safer. I couldn't find the footage where I'd recorded that, so I apologize. But again, I just used this ledger board clamped to the post and then cut it along the top. That worked pretty well. With the boards cut, I'm ready to add the top. Once I get the top beam up, I fasten it to the lower beams using these structural screws. These are pretty hefty, heavy-duty screws. This is actually a smaller one. The ones I had, I think, were about 6 or so inches long. This one's about 3.5 inches long. At one end, there's a point that'll drill in, so you don't need to drill a pilot hole if you don't want to. I did, in the top anyway. And then they also sit in there and provide a lot of support. Now, this was going down in, and it was really meant to make it so that the top post doesn't move in any direction. All the weight's holding it down. So there doesn't need to be a lot of screws. I just did one into each top, but you could do more than that if you wanted to feel more comfortable. I took the other 2x6, slapped one on the front, one on the back to give it a little bit more structure, and cut some angles on the sides to give it some interest. And then I went to put the kind of crowning pergola pieces up to the top. I kind of struggled at first knowing how to attach them. I wanted to make it so that it was easy to install and that you also wouldn't really see any of the screws or any of the attachments. So I opted to go with these L brackets. They're fairly cheap, and I just installed them ahead of time, set them up there, and then was able to screw them in. Now to screw them in, I have this really nifty tool, which is kind of an angled drill attachment, so you can really get in to kind of nooks and crannies. I'll post a link to that product down in my description along with everything else that I used. But it worked really, really well to get into those nooks and crannies and kind of drill in all these pieces. Now with the top all done, it's time to drill the hooks for the hammocks themselves. Now there's a lot of different hooks you could use for that. I use these hooks you actually just drill into the top. It says they hold 1,000 pounds a piece, which is plenty. I use 3-inch screws to drill them in, so there's a lot of strength there, and 4 3-inch screws. And then you just have these carabiner hooks that hook onto the hammocks. This is a really great project, and we've really enjoyed it. It's really helped to make our backyard more fun and functional, and a great place for us to kind of sit and relax while we watch the kids play, while we watch the fireflies at night, while we watch the sunset, while we watch the bunnies come out of the forest. And so it's a really great project, and it's not that difficult to do. It's something that really anyone could do with a bit of elbow grease and a few of the right tools. So I'll make sure to post a link to all the tools that I use in the description, as well as that link to that video I mentioned with the concrete, as well as some information about my sister-in-law's Instagram account. And so like I said, check them out because they're great. And if you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that bell icon so that you can be notified when I post new videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Yes, it looks super uncomfortable. You like swinging in it?
Yes, and I like picking raspberries.
You like picking raspberries?